But when it's in wine or even in tea a little bit, that flavor kind of brings you back. You're like, because my grandpa loved licorice, loved it. So he kind of always smelled like licorice, right? So it's kind of a little nostalgic, like, oh, this is a part of my childhood here, this flavor here, this feeling here. So when I make wines, I try to make them with balance. And well, we all do, right? Like every winemaker is going to tell you tries to make with balance and complexity and depth. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But I really want to have some flavors you can identify. Even if you don't identify the same flavors as me, that's fine. We all taste different things. Nobody's wrong. If you say you taste cherry, then you taste cherry, man. That is what it is. So I try to get it so you can feel and taste the flavors and have that nostalgia, even though maybe you're not thinking of it actively. Your brain's like, I know this feeling. I know these flavors. This is home.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Barrels and Roots podcast. I've got an awesome guest with me today. And would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
My name is Adam Martinez. I am the winemaker at Uplifted Winery here in Rapid City, South Dakota.
That's awesome, man. What got you into wine? How did you start down that path?
It was a long, convoluted road, actually. I didn't even know you could be a winemaker or like go to school for it. I thought like your dad was a winemaker, so you were a winemaker. That's how that went. And I was working for this restaurant out here in Rapid City, and they're a brewery restaurant, brew pub, and they wanted to start a winery. And I kind of discovered that I was getting a little too old to be up at 2 a.m. Too old and too grumpy.
Right.
So when they started the winery, I was like, hey, I got a background in chemistry. Let me run your lab so you don't have to send your samples to California. And so I started kind of part-time just doing the science. And the more you learn about wine, the more you want to learn. It's so complex. It's a great balance of science and art. So I just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper until one day I asked the guy that was kind of the winemaker at the time, I was like, hey, do you think I could do this? And he was like, of course you can, brother. Who knows if he actually believed it? He's just a super supportive guy. But then into wine I went. Yeah. So I was like bartending, managing a restaurant. And this is not for me. So they started their winery. And I was like, hey, let me do the chemistry so you don't have to send it all the way to California, pay all this money in shipping. So I started getting into the chemistry. And the more you get into wine, the more you want to get into wine. It's so complex. There's so much science, so much art, so much luck.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Right.
So the more I learned, the more I was like, hey, let me do more. So I started doing more in the cellar, everything hands-on. And then eventually one day I was like, hey, do you think I can do this? And the guy that was kind of running the show at the time was like, of course you can, brother. And I don't know if he actually believed it, but he's just a really supportive, great guy.
That's awesome though, right?
I leaned on him. Yeah, right. He's the best, man. So I did a little enology certificate out in Washington State. And then there it was, just kept diving in.
That's awesome, man. It's interesting because I love that. Like sometimes we just do need those people that are sitting there going, yeah, man, you can totally do this, even if you can't. And then maybe you figure it out, and it's like, well, damn, I did get there. Yay. And they just look at you going, I didn't think you could make that. I had a friend that we were doing some stupid thing with our bikes at some point in time. I was younger. My friend's like, you could totally do that jump. And I did it. And then afterwards, he was like, dude, I thought you were going to die. Like, I did not believe in you. I was like, I did not think you could pull that off. I thought we were going to be picking you up and taking you to the hospital. But way to go. I'm so proud of you. And it's just like, I appreciate what you're saying right there. But, what can you do? That's awesome, man.
Thanks for the push.
Right? Thanks for the push. Appreciate that. When someone as you're starting to get into, you talk about wine and like art, science, and luck. Like, that is a great combination. Talk to me a little bit more about this intersection between art, science, and luck, because I mean, literally though, you're describing most of life with that,
Yeah, that's why wine is so great, man. It has tons of science that you could read research papers on wine for months on end. I mean, there's acids and tannins and all these chemicals in there that are doing different things. So from a science perspective, you can just sit there and analyze until the cows come home. It doesn't always work though, because it's the real life. You're not in a lab, you know what I mean? So it's science and it has a base, but that's when the art comes in. You're like, so the science isn't working like I want it. What do I need to do? What do I got to heat it up? Do I got to get creative? Do I got to, do this or that? And that's when the art comes in, with flavors and like just your thought of how can I do this? Like what can I make happen that's not really science based? Like, and then the luck, a lot of luck is just kind of trusting your feelings, your gut. I guess that's what people say, right? Listen to your gut. Sometimes you're like, I think I should do this. No basis. Science says, that's nothing. It's not really artistic, but you're like, I think this needs to be done with this.
Right.
And you just trust it, and there comes luck, right? When the wine comes out the other end.
I remember going back to one of the most scientific things I ever did was a baking class. And I'm going to explain why, because you actually have a very clear set of instructions. You go to bake a cake, it's actually, here are the ingredients.
Yep.
It's spelled out. Like, it is kind of like very scientific method type of thing. It's laid out. You have this approach to do it. You test it. You have a hypothesis. I think I can make this cake. You go through the steps, and it should be something that you can replicate. And, I get there and I get that box and I go to make that cake. My cake tastes like crap. There is something else, some extra thing that, it's like, I don't know if I cook too long. I don't know if I don't stir it right. But I was just like, I sit there looking at my cake going, what did I do wrong? Because sometimes, like, you can do everything right on paper. You can get all of the pieces in there, but it doesn't turn out right. So, then if you don't have those steps, it's like, it's this real balance between these three things, and like, sometimes there are variables in anything in life that you don't necessarily understand. It's like, I was reading, there was this movie when I was a kid with Sean Connery called Medicine Man or something. It's a scientist out in the Amazon jungle, and they were trying to figure out,
oh yeah, I've seen that.
Trying to figure out like the cure for cancer.
Totally.
And like, they were like out there like looking for this thing, and like they were testing these samples, and they were sure it was this flower. And then suddenly there was like, they realized it was like the ants or something. These ants that were getting into this sugar were causing this reaction that was causing it. So they said, stop, don't bulldoze the forest. It was this very, very great movie. But like, what always struck me was like, the variable that they couldn't like analyze, that they didn't plan for, was this little tiny thing that just threw the chemistry in a whole different direction. And I always thought about that for wine. Like, when you're going to make a wine, one little variable, like the temperature change, extra rainfall, our little things can make a dramatic difference.
Yeah. Huge differences. I mean, just year to year, you can see it in the vineyard. And I mean, weather's steady, but it's never the same, right? So you get grapes year after year, and you're like, this isn't the same grape it was last year. Or, what happened this year that made this wine so this or that? Yeah, it's a tiny little, even just a little bit of humidity, tiny bit of mold somewhere. That's the worst, Brettanomyces is sneaking up on you. Invisible, and it ruins your whole day.
That's got to be rough, man. It's interesting though, because tonight, my wife ordered some. We have like this awesome type of grapefruit. It's called pomelo, and it's like a giant grapefruit, except it's really sweet, less sour. Oh my goodness, so good. But one of the things that you can find is like you go to like the airport or a regular supermarket, and it's good. It's good. But then you go like we get this one place, this one fruit distributor, and damn, their fruit is good. And I just had it tonight, and we just had a piece of this Pablo, and I was like, just like it was like pure ecstasy when I ate this, man. But what struck me is like at some point in time, somebody is doing something right with that fruit. You know, there is something that is being done right. There is this mixture of art, science, and a little bit of magic and luck at the same time, man. You know, whatever it takes.
I was just talking about the growers, you know, they're amazing. They're so smart, and how they keep track of these plants and keep them year after year, like delicious fruit. I mean, you can really tell. You can tell the care they put into it, right? And the hard work, and you can feel the effort in these grapes that come out amazing year after year, fighting things year after year,
Right.
from everything from mold to bears.
Bears.
I've had pictures sent to me of bears eating my grapes. Oh yeah, man. Bears, raccoons, birds. Everybody wants those grapes.
Makes sense, man. I never thought about bears. That's wild. But I wanted to
I
ask
didn't
you.
either until I got a picture.
That's wild, man. No idea. But yeah, I mean, of course, bear's gonna like some sweet thing. You know, I just hope that whatever it was happening, there's some bare necessity being sung. I mean, I don't know, Bill Murray style or the old one, whatever it works. Let me ask you. Let me ask you this one before I start going on some weird tangent. You know, when you go to make a wine, what is the process that you go through mentally to start preparing or to get ready or to start working that season?
You know, it's funny. Every season you make a plan, and you're like, this is what I want from my grapes. I want you to pick it right here at these numbers. I want it brought to me at night, or, you know, pick it when it's cool, yada, yada, yada. You pick the yeast, you get it in you're like, oh, I'm going to make it taste big, or I'm going to have a big Cabernet. And then you get it and you see the actual form of the grape, or you get a feeling for what's going on, and you're like, well, my plan's worthless. Let me switch. Let me go left here. So every year you plan, and, you know, the more you work with a vineyard, the skinnier your air becomes. You know, you're like, okay, I know it's going to be this or somewhere in between, so I can plan for that. But when you get new vineyards or new vineyard managers, it's always the best plans of mice and men, right? Out the door, make it up as you go.
I had a podcast last night, and the guy came on, super cool dude. And I had prepped all my questions for like health stuff because I know he does health stuff. But then he's like, you know what, dude, I'd actually love to talk about podcasting because I do podcasting, you do podcasting. And I was like, okay, let's talk about podcasts. I'm going to put it onto a different podcast that I do. But yeah, man, let's do it. And we had this great, organic, awesome conversation. But it's like you had to be present and be paying attention to what's in front of you. You know, like sometimes what you think you're going to get is not what you get.
A lot of times.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you go about making a wine, for me, you know, wine, when I drink a wine, it's always like home. Like it feels like home because I grew up in the Napa Valley, and like I got really lucky that my parents moved there when I was in high school. And I didn't know where this place was. I just knew there was a bunch of vineyards, and I got there. And then all through college, I was living in the Napa Valley, went to college there, started working in the Valley, got to be around great wineries and great wine and winemakers. And for me, like, dude, wine is home, like truthfully home. Because like when I open up a bottle and I smell and I get hit by it, it reminds me of the Crush, you know, like where I'm sitting there and the whole valley smells like wine. The last time we were back in Napa, my mom lives up in the St. Helena area, and my wife, I told her about the Crush. I was like, dude, you have no idea like what this is like. When they start doing the Crush, you're going to like the whole valley smells like wine. And she's like, no, I don't believe you. And we were there, and she's just like, dude, it is delicious. Yeah, like, the air smells like, you know, great wine. And I was like, yeah, it's amazing. But every time I drink a glass, dude, wine is home. It just takes me back. There's this association. How do you put into your wine these powerful feelings and things, man, to connect people to stuff?
So, I feel everybody's got that nostalgia, right? Everybody remembers flavors and scents from your grandma's house or your aunt's or your mom's or your cousins or your best friend's mom who baked. We all have these memories that we probably don't remember, but your brain doesn't actually forget, right? It just stores it somewhere you can't access or can't access without some work. It's just like sights and smells and tastes. You might not know you're tasting this, but your brain knows. And somewhere in there, that nostalgia gets activated, right? All these flavors you remember as a kid, or maybe even flavors you weren't really fond of. Like I'm not a big licorice guy, especially when I was a kid. I hated it. But when it's in wine or even in tea, a little bit, that flavor kind of brings you back. You're like, because my grandpa loved licorice, loved it. So he kind of always smelled like licorice, right? So it's kind of a little nostalgic, like, oh, this is a part of my childhood here. This flavor here, this feeling here. So when I make wines, I try to make them with balance, and well, we all do, right? Like every winemaker is going to tell you, tries to make with balance and complexity and depth. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But I really want to have some flavors you can identify. Even if you don't identify the same flavors as me, that's fine. We all taste different things. Nobody's wrong. If you say you taste cherry, then you taste cherry, man. That is what it is. So I try to get it so you can feel and taste the flavors and have that nostalgia, even though maybe you're not thinking of it actively. Your brain's like, I know this. I know this feeling. I know these flavors. This is home.
There was I remember one of my first wine tastings, and I talk about this a lot on here. My wine tasting with one of my friends, and he was like, the people were like, "It has hints of tobacco," and my friend just got hung up on the tobacco line. He's like, "Dude, does it have tobacco in it?" I was like, "No, I mean, it's like, it's what is the association?" He's like, and and it's funny because he was like, I don't know, man, I'm taking chocolate cupcakes. And I was just like, okay, that's something new, man. I don't understand where that's coming from,
Right.
but all right, I'm cool with that. And he was like writing down the weirdest tasting notes. But it was like the associations that he was having, and it was like, because that's like you said, it's where your brain goes, and there's no wrong answer. It's just about what are you associating it with, what are you picking up? One of the things that
Right.
I was as I've been doing this podcast and talking to winemakers, and I just kept hearing people tell stories, but like, I want to ask you this: what's the biggest misconception people have about winemakers and the work you guys do?
So everybody treats it like this mystical, like, I don't know, like you're doing something amazing. And really, we're just janitors that babysit yeast. Like all we do is clean. like like in the production room, all the photos you see are by the barrel swirling a glass of wine.
And some guy got some
holding up great,
big long piece of glass that they're dipping in and like got their thumb on it, taking samples out.
The wine thief.
Yeah.
Look at this cool thing.
Yeah, right.
That's like 10% of the day. That's like maybe 10%. The rest of it, we got goggles, we got big thick gloves, and we're a janitor that doesn't get fired for drinking on the job. That's pretty much what winemakers are.
That's awesome, man. You can't go wrong there. But it's like one of the things too, I think that like people, I don't know, man, wine hasn't been done well. It hasn't been given a fair shake from, the film industry. And anytime you see wine and it's like film and TV, like they show wine and it's like some guy like, shall we get another bottle from the wine room?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's like that. And like winemakers as well, it's like I remember when I was younger, God, it was Keanu's awful phase, man. Early Keanu, post
A Walk in the Clouds.
A Walk in the Clouds, dude. Yeah. And it was like, there was the winemakers, it was so horribly done. But like, and Keanu's acting was so horrible. Keanu, I love you now, man. John Wick, can't go wrong. We'll never say anything bad about you. But my God, there was a period of time where it was a bit rough. But in that, like you see these stories about winemakers and it makes it seem like, Father, we have the vine that we brought over from wherever. But really, like there's a bunch of science like goes into it, and it's like I was looking at some winemaking classes and it was like talking about the science. It's talking about chemistry. And you had a background in chemistry, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did that help you at all?
So I'm probably like, oh my gosh, it was so helpful. I'm probably like 6 credits from actually graduating with a bachelor's, but I didn't want to actually be a chemist because you got to live in like New Jersey or wherever DuPont is
Right.
or Bayer or all these big companies. And I was like, so I got to live on the East Coast with a quadrillion people? Nah, I'm out. I'm going to do something else. So I kind of gave up on that. So I had extensive chemistry background and it was super helpful in the beginning. And it became a little crutch. And that's when I figured out chemistry doesn't always work. Like, I had this Merlot. Oh my gosh. It's really good now. Like, it's really good. It was a 19 Merlot. But in the beginning, I called it my poop Merlot because it was just terrible. It stunk. It didn't matter what I did to it. It was just this terrible, beastie little wine that I had. And I read every research paper. I looked at every chemical angle that I could. And I was like, none of this is going to work. And then I just started kind of aging it in different barrels and kind of messing with it and maybe oxygenating it a little bit more than you probably should. And now it's a really good Merlot. It's drinking just fantastic right now. But boy, for 2 years, that guy was ew.
It brings me back to that cooking analogy. Like sometimes you can do everything right. I think the better analogy is as a parent. I've read all the parenting books and I am like sitting here doing my best to raise a 9-year-old going on 25. And it ain't easy, man. You read all the stuff and then there's life and then you got to figure it out. But you make mistakes. And like one of the good things is, you make mistakes and mistakes help you reshape the way you think. And I want to ask you, was there ever any mistakes that you made that changed your approach to winemaking?
Oh gosh, so many probably. Let's see. Thank goodness, none of them were devastating, but I bought these 3 Portuguese style grapes, like a Touriga Nacional, Tinto Yeast, and which was the other one? Tintacal. And I was super excited. And the vineyard, I was super pleased with the grower and how they did things. And when they came in, they were a really good grape. And I had a crew at the time, and we had, you got to communicate with humans, and that's probably not my strong point. And at the time, it definitely wasn't my strong point. So I had these notes written down for them to do this, this, and this. But I wrote it down kind of jankily. I understood it, but I probably should have clarified. So my wine got overfed. All 3 of these beautiful wines, they all got just kicked into high gear and they turned hot and kind of burned out and became super alcoholic. And it was a huge disappointment because I definitely did not reach these grapes' potential with this fermentation. I ended up blending them, and they came out a pretty good wine. A little bit of a pudding, but it sold, and now so my business was happy. But yeah, it was definitely communication, which I didn't really factor into winemaking because I started with just me. I didn't have to communicate. It was just me, and the growers, and talking to farmers is easy. But as I grew, I definitely was like, oh man, I need to get better at this whole like being organized, communicating precisely so I don't ruin more grapes.
Right. It's interesting too because like when you work with a new varietal, I mean, any type of thing, like I'm gonna go in a weird direction right now. Not really weird, but kind of weird. A couple of years ago, I've had like lots of dogs. I'm a dog fan. Dog, got a good dog.
Nah,
And sorry, love that movie.
like them dags.
Get some dags. Yeah. I love Snatch, man. I don't have any dags, but I got a dog. What was that line? I can't remember. But like one of the things is I've had a lot of dogs, and we had German Shepherds, we had poodles, we had like for the longest time I had the sweetest and most amazing pit bull, and then a couple of years ago my dog passed away, and I said, well, let's get a new dog, and I was looking around for some dogs that were like rescues in the area, and I found someone that had bought a border collie, and they had no idea what they were doing with this dog. And I knew that border collie is high energy. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
I can give it a shot. Dude, border collies are nuts, and I love my border collie. He's a cool dog, but he's insane. And he is the weirdest dog I've ever had. He is smart as hell, but he just uses that brain to cause massive chaos and drama and problems. But he's such a sweet boy. But he deals with massive anxiety, and he's kind of the perfect reflection for me. I'm a similar dog to me, but what can you do? Dogs mirror their owners. But he was like such a weird dog. And one of the things is I did not know what I was getting into when I got that dog, And I've heard about that, people with different, types of dogs, that they will get into it like, you pick up, oh, it's a cute little poodle. You don't realize that these dogs bark and they're stubborn as hell. They're smart and small and stubborn. Chihuahuas, they shake. People think it's going to be adorable. And the dog's like, I want to die. It's like little terrible things. But, I'm sorry, not every Chihuahua thinks that. Just the ones that have those giant heads and little bodies. But sorry, if we can't have fun on a wine podcast, what are we doing, right? When
Right.
you're working with a new varietal, how do you kind of learn this grape? Because I'm sure that there are some grapes that are way easy to manage, and I think there's going to be grapes that are the border collies of the wine world. Hopefully none Chihuahuas.
Oh yeah. We got a few Chihuahuas too.
That's awesome.
When you start working with a new one, I do a lot of research. I'll go and I'll read, of course, you as a person of science, I'll get some of those research papers. I'll usually call up a friend or two. If I've known they've worked with it, or even if I don't, I'll ask them, hey, did you ever work with this grape in this area? Or have you ever worked with vineyards in this area? Are there problems? Are they sulfur filled? Do they do this? Is there a yeast I shouldn't use? So we'll start there, asking other people their expertise, because I'd rather learn from their mistakes than my own. I've made plenty, but it's never fun. Well, sometimes it's fun, but anyway, so I'll do all that. We'll talk to the vineyard guys. We'll see kind of how they usually like to ripen it, how that grape acts in the wild. And then once it comes in to the winery itself, then you get to see, how many seeds does it have? Are they brown? Are they green? Like, what are the stems like on this guy? What's the skin depth? There's a bunch of other high-tech tests, but we're a pretty small winery, so we don't really test like anthocyanin levels and tannin levels and all that stuff. We get to learn that by fermenting it and seeing how it comes out. So I just do everything I can to learn about it and learn about the region and learn about the problems of the region. I don't really look for like, what's this region always taste like? I don't actually care what that region usually tastes like. I look for the problems in that region so I can avoid the problems and let the grape be the grape. Not steer it down the wrong path or let the yeast get all wild. Just kind of guide it gently to the end and let it be itself. And usually, if you can do that, it comes out pretty nice.
That's awesome. Well, in place is interesting too. You're in South Dakota, and I love South Dakota. My dad lives up in the Black Hills area, but it's not. I mean, at least
Nice.
I don't always associate South Dakota and wine. Talk to me a little bit about the wine in South Dakota, and maybe it is. I don't have any idea.
You know, we're a little lucky and unlucky. We have really good soil. The moisture here is actually perfect. We're windy, so we don't have any mold or mildew pressure. We have a ton of things that are super advantageous to grapes. And if the world was flat, like some people think, you could like look right over at Bordeaux. We're about the same latitude. We're pretty close. But we have 2 weeks a year that's -24, -30, -50. Who knows? Right? Like it's gonna get cold. And at -24, grapes end their life. At least Vitis vinifera, like traditional wine grapes. Like you can't grow Cabernet out here. You can't even grow Cab Franc, which is a nice cold hardy, considered a cold hardy grape, at least among wine grapes. But we do have, so University of Minnesota and Cornell figured out that you can't grow grapes up north. It's too cold, but everybody likes wine. So they started like breeding them a long time ago, maybe in the 70s, maybe even earlier than that. So they would take like Pinot Noir and then breed it with an American grape, trying to get a hardy vine that tasted good. Because American grapes can be kind of funky and foxy and like not amazing in wine. Maybe a good table grape, but once you turn it into wine, it has some less than desirable flavors. So they started breeding these guys to be able to grow here in South Dakota and Minnesota and like the Finger Lakes region. And they're pretty successful. They got a few pretty good ones. We grow Marquette. That's the big red one out here. Like Missouri grows Norton. We grow Marquette. It's the great great grandson of Pinot Noir, and it's hardy. It's fun. It's not a difficult grape to work with in the winery. In the vineyard, Pinot Noir is always a little iffy to work with, and our weather doesn't help. Like we had 112-mile-an-hour winds last night. Holy
man.
cow! It was crazy. We get half the city's no power. Yeah, it was nuts for a minute. Yeah, we ship them in from Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado.
That's awesome. If you were to start looking at like the rules that you were taught, but you learned to break them later on, what were some of the rules that you were taught in winemaking that you had to sit there and go, you know what, that's not for me. That doesn't work.
Yeah, so sulfites, you're supposed to keep it at a certain level, right? That's how it works. Keep it protected from other bacteria and all this stuff. So you keep it at this molecular level, yada, yada, yada. So it's this many parts per million, depending on pH. You can stretch that pretty hard. I don't like to use a lot of sulfites. I do, and I will always use them. Yeast use them. Yeast produce their own sulfites to fight off other bacteria, like mold produces penicillin, right? To fight off other bacterias and organisms and stuff. So I'll always use them, but I like to be real gentle with it. So I push that boundary pretty hard on how much is in there and how much you actually need. The other one is probably no oxygen. Like when I first started making wine, they're like, oxygen's so bad, da 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 da. And for a good chunk of the wine, it is. But for a good chunk of the wine's life, you do need it. And it's super important to be in there at certain levels, especially whites. That was like anathema growing up. Like, no oxygen in your whites. You're going to turn it brown. Keep it protected. Stir it with CO2 or nitrogen or argon or yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I never thought that was actually super true. But I kind of went along with it until some other people started coming out with some papers on oxidation where they just blast this white wine with oxygen. And I was like, I knew that was a fairy tale. So I've kind of been breaking those for a while, but little steps, right? Like, ooh, maybe a little here. Okay, it worked. Let's do a little more.
Let me ask you like a more basic question. What makes a great wine?
Everyone's different, man.
Mm,
When people ask me what's the best wine, and I'm like, what's your favorite wine? That's it. That's the best wine in the world, man. Your favorite. To me, personally, I love balance. I I don't care if it's big or small, but I love balance. If it's bold on the beginning, I like it to continue that all the way through. If it's soft, likewise. I think harmony and balance, almost like music, right?
hmm
You can hear when there's a note out of place. You're like, ooh, you're flat, buddy. That didn't work. I see those guitars back there.
But not everyone can do that, you
So
know?
you can tell when you hit the wrong note, right? When your finger slid too far, you didn't push hard enough, and the fret buzzes. You're like, ooh,
Mm,
that's not right. That's not right. Same to me in a wine. The flavor is flat, or it buzzes a little bit. That's not my favorite wine. But if it's just a little symphony all the way through, delicious for me.
I love that. That's one of the things too, is like, I love that. The idea that I don't necessarily know what a good wine tastes like, but I've had great wines and I've had wines that were not, didn't sit with me. And at the end of the day, I still wonder, and I know everyone will have an opinion on this, but were they actually great or were they just matching with my palate, you know? And so I've had some stuff that was really, really expensive and I tasted it and I was like, damn, that's good. And I've had stuff that was really, really cheap and I tasted it and I was like, damn, that's good. So I don't know, man. Or maybe I just love wine and it's just like they all taste good to me. But I do still think that there's something. I have, and I say this all the time. I like stuff that's more mellow. And I love a good Pinot Noir. I love a good Merlot. Cab still, it hits heavy, hits hard, especially from Napa. It's like they love those
Oh yeah.
those big bold cabs, and like I can handle them, but it's not the thing that I go to every day. And like one of the nice realizations for me was like that was okay. I have a wife that likes the sweet sparkly stuff, and so everyone's got the different things they like.
Right. And that's what we miss a little bit in the wine industry. I think they're coming back around to it a little bit, like realizing that like it doesn't, all this exclusivity and all this stuff that we made, like, oh, it's so exclusive to drink wine. We're farmers, bro. Like,
Right,
we started as farmers. What do you mean exclusive? This used to be like just something you did because you grew grapes.
dude. I was reading about like I I have no problem about there being super luxe brands. I have no problem with if this or that. But here's the thing, right? Let's imagine this was cars. Let's imagine that the wine industry was the same as cars. Okay, because it's easier for us and we don't throw anybody under the bus. But imagine that, dude, I love a good Honda Civic. And if I want a car for commuting, maybe I'll get a Honda Civic. Maybe I'll try a Tesla. Maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I want a big Toyota 4x4. I live up in the mountains, or Chevy or Ford or whatever it is that's your thing, right? But there's a range of stuff. There's also Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Bugattis, which are amazing
Mhm.
things. And there's a total place for them. But what would happen if the entire automobile industry said, we want to make a lot of money? And the best way we can do that is only making the really, really expensive stuff. And the reality is there's also a huge section of the population that you can be selling cars to that's not just the super wealthy. And so to me, it makes no
Right.
logical sense that you're cutting off this huge segment of the population just because you want to focus on one area alone. And I mean, I'm great. Granted, it's selling $1,000, $2,000 bottle. It's awesome. But wine should be fun. And there's a place in the industry for really, really high end stuff and also really cool stuff and I'm not saying cheap, I'm saying just different quality, different types, different things. And I mean, because if you want Gen Z to start getting into wine, they're not going to be starting off with a $2,000 bottle. They're not going to be starting off with a $500 bottle or a $100 bottle. They're probably going to be starting off with something that's affordable.
Right. Which one of us started with a $500 bottle? Right.
Dude, no.
I remember drinking, Ravenswood was actually, I think at the time, $8 to $12
Yep.
when I was younger. That's one of my favorite. I love their Zinfandel. They did a great job with those vines. They did a great job with the wine, and it was $12.
Yeah.
Like, I think it might be 20 now, but still, it's only $20. That's not bad for a pretty well-made wine. My favorite wine is down at Trader Joe's, one of my favorite summer wines, a nice little Vino Verde. I think it went up to $4.25 now a bottle, but it used to be like $2.5, $3 a bottle, man. It was a delicious Vino Verde. And it was cheaper than a soda almost. Like, it was great.
I have this guilty pleasure. It's a Stump Jump from Australia, and they have this like red blend that is just such a good little blend. And it's one of my guilty pleasures. Like, it's got a little bit of Shiraz in there, but it's got some Grenache and some other fun things, and they mix it all up. And dude, guilty pleasure. And it's a great little wine. And, it's cheap. It's like $15 for this wine. And it's like, it's not, and it doesn't need to be wild and fancy. And I mean, dude, someone walks into the room. If there's anyone listening to this podcast who wants to offer me a couple $1,000 bottles of wine, I'm going to happily drink it, and I'll happily give you amazing reviews on the podcast. There's nothing wrong with that. But that being said, like, dude, I'm going to be plenty happy drinking my $15 bottle of wine too. And I think that, like, why I'm bringing this up, and why I think I think there are people in the industry that are starting to see this. Like, when you super niche down into one group, when that group gets old and dies, like the boomers are going to be doing at some point in time, you lose your customer base, and that's not what you want to be doing, man. You got to look at how to bring in new people and make wine fun again.
That's a big part of it. Wine is food. Wine is community. Wine, I look at it as like, I love cooking, but you can't cook for 3,000 people.
Right.
That is a ton of work. But I can make wine for 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And we can share this little concoction, and we can chat over it, and we can feel like community again, and feel fun. And it doesn't have to be all this craziness. But saying that, I still respect all the work and effort these guys do to make some amazing wines. I've had some pretty expensive wines, but they were so good.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Like, that is the beauty of this. And I don't think that anyone is hating on stuff, because, like, dude, I got to ride in a Lamborghini last year. I hopped in that Lamborghini. God damn, that was a fun experience, And if I could ride in a Lamborghini every single day, I'd probably do it. I'm not going to lie. But, like, it's not practical from where I'm at. And, like, I would probably be that dumbass that would wrap that Lamborghini or jump it into a curb or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, I think that there is a place for everything. There's more room than what we're giving room for. And I think that, like, dude, like, the artisanship, the craftsmanship that goes into these fine wines is amazing. It's so amazing. But it's also that we have to help people realize how they can get there. Like, hi, welcome to the wine world. This is your Kia of wines. It's going to do you good. It's going to get you everything that you need. It's going to be awesome. It doesn't have the bells and whistles, but you're going to be happy. And I bring up Kia because Kia was super smart. Like, I remember 10, 15 years ago, Kia was nowhere on the map, and they suddenly said, hey, dude, let's market to millennials, young millennials. And they did this whole rebranding. They made the cars colorful and stuff. And the millennials are like, dude, this is the car for me. And they dove in.
And now they're big. They're like one of the best-selling brands in America, I think, now.
Yeah, because they were able to see that there was a need that was not being met. And I just hope that the wine industry can kind of see that, like, if we're going to get people into wine again, wine has to be a little bit more fun. And, starting off with little ways.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the approachability, I love the way you put it. There's more room. There's enough room for all these wines in your life,
Yeah, 100%.
Just invite them all in.
I loved reading Jack Kerouac back in the day. Like, I don't know, his Dharma bums are on the road, and he talks about carrying around this like giant like wine bottle. Yeah, I remember seeing those when I was young, like the one that's got the thing you can hook your finger on. It's like this big old thing.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was like younger, out of college, and my friend walked into a party with like a jug of wine. And he made it. It was like, I made this myself. And and I was like, dude, really? And it was pretty damn good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty damn good for a dude who knew no idea what he was doing. He's like, I followed all these directions and it turned out pretty damn good. And it wasn't that great, but it served the purpose and it was awesome. And it brought us together.
It was good enough.
It was good enough. It brought us together. Everyone had a great time. And we drank wine out of this giant jug. And, there was some power to that. And what I'm getting at is that wine brings people together. And in a time where we need people to be coming together more than ever, wine has a place for that,
I agree wholeheartedly. It's all about bringing us together. It's all about, wholeness and just fun and community. And like, there's no worries. We got to get rid of the judgment. Oh, you don't taste that? Who cares? Do you like it? That's all you need to know, brother.
100%. What's your favorite varietal to work with? And which varietal do you think's a little bitch, man?
So I know this I got this down. Sangiovese. Love working with it. It's not an undifficult grape, but it's so fun and it's so terroir specific. You can get a Sangio grown right across the road from another Sangio and they'll be different.
Wow.
And it's just amazing to me how varied they are. I love working with them. I love making them. I think they complement how I make wine too. I think they just naturally don't like intervention and just will do their thing without you. So it just kind of syncs with what I'm doing. Cab Franc on the other side I love a good Cab Franc. I love drinking a good Cab Franc. And now that I know what it takes to make a good Cab Franc, I even appreciate it more. But they just suck, man. They're a nightmare from growing to processing to the whole 9 yards. It's just a big suck. If you do it right, amazing wine. If you do it even a little bit wrong,
wine world.
there it is. The Chihuahua. So much work, and when you get it right, man, it pays off. Cab Franc is delicious, but man, so many people don't work hard enough to get it right. And I don't blame them because I've done it a couple times and I was like, I don't think I'm going to make that anymore.
That's awesome. If someone opens one of your bottles years from now, long after it leaves your hands, what do you hope they feel in that moment that they open up one of your bottles?
I just hope they feel content. I hope it's an enjoyment, an experience. I hope they enjoy it. Enjoy that part of their life and enjoy that bottle with a friend. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, man.
That's why I bottle wine, is so people can enjoy it.
That's awesome.
That's it,
man. Well, brother, that is it, brother. Where can people find more about you and more about the wine that you're making?
We got a little website, upliftedwinery.com. Social media, obviously, Facebook and Instagram, Uplifted Winery. We post quite a bit on there. We like to be pretty transparent because to us, wine is about us. It's about our community. It's about how we interact. So we love to tell people everything we got about it and let them kind of fish it out for themselves to see if this is their thing or not.